It could be the largest land grab since World War II. And the world watching right now as Russia mobilizes troops at the border with Ukraine, appearing to gear up for a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and it could happen soon. President Biden threatened Russian President Vladimir Putin with economic sanctions that include the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Joining us right now, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, a member of the House Armed Services Committee as well. Congressman Waltz, welcome back to the National Desk.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be with you.
After that meeting, you said right now we are coming across too weak. You said Russia's playing chess, we're playing checkers. What did the president need to convey, do you think, in that video call?
Well, I think we need to just to set the table here, to appreciate that the timing is really curious. Number one, it's happening in the wake of our withdrawal from Afghanistan. Where I do believe we demonstrated that we won't stand with our allies, and the way that it was conducted was so chaotic. Number two, it's happening as Nord Stream 2. That pipeline directly from Russia to Germany comes online, which would allow Russia to then cut off gas to the Ukraine and cut off gas to Eastern Europe and starve it essentially in the middle of winter, while also holding Germany and Western Europe hostage with their energy needs. And then number three, it's no coincidence that the last time Putin did this and invaded Crimea in Eastern Ukraine was under the Obama-Biden administration. And now he's prepared to do it again. Why? Because he knows he can get away with it. So we needed to see some real tough red lines put in place that would raise costs significantly for Putin, to stop him on the front end, not explain to him how we would react on the back end.
Congressman, let's take a listen to what National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan had to say right after. Listen to this.
When it comes to Nord Stream 2, the fact is the gas is not currently flowing through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which means that it's not operating, which means that it's not leverage for Putin. Indeed, it is a leverage for the West, because if Vladimir Putin wants to see gas flow through that pipeline, he may not want to take the risk of invading Ukraine.
And again, the German government already told the Kremlin they would suspend the pipeline if Russia invades. So tell us very quickly the impact that would have, and is that even enough?
Well, I think Jake Sullivan's playing with words there. The pipeline is constructed. It's ready to go. Literally all the German government has to do is certify it and flip on the switch, and they're forming a new government right now. The Germans have been clear they want this gas. I think it's a real mistake, because it's going to not only make them dependent on Russia, it's some of the dirtiest types of gas in the world from an environmental standpoint. I think that's playing with words. At the end of the day, there's a reason we tried to sanction it, and there's a reason Russia wanted it in place.
And let's talk big picture here. You mentioned this earlier, because right now we know the world's watching. China's watching, North Korea's watching, Iran is watching. Tell us what's really happening here in regards to what Russia is trying to accomplish and why this is a crucial moment for this country.
Well, and I think we need to explain too, why does this matter to everyday Americans just, trying to get their kids off to school in the morning? This is exactly what happened in the 1930s when one country fell. And the West shrugged its shoulders, and then it was the next country, the next country, the next country. Putin has been very clear that he intends to reestablish the old Soviet Union, and that will be absolutely destabilizing for Europe, for the West. And right now, authoritarianism is on the march, whether it's Iran racing to a nuclear weapon, China threatening Taiwan, which would allow them to control almost 50% of global trade, heading in and out of Asia. This is a moment of Reagan-like clarity where we need to take a stand. That doesn't mean hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops on the ground. That means boldly and militarily supporting our allies with air defense weapons, anti-ship weapons, and making Ukraine a porcupine that Russia will back down from.
So we have to support our allies, right, especially being part of NATO. So what actions are you and your colleagues prepared to take to really protect American interests as the administration takes future steps right now with Russia?
Well, I think the sanctions need to go into place now. I think those would be supported in the Congress. And those types of weaponry need to be supplied to the Ukrainians now, not thought about, not considered or studied. They need to be on ships heading to the Ukraine as we speak, because, from every indication we're getting, Russia could do this within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And that means what's inbound, it needs to be on its way to be effective. And the thing the Ukrainians have been asking about most forcefully is for air defense. If we remember the Stinger missile system, to protect them against the Russian Air Force. And I think that would send a real message to Putin that he's not going to get away with this easily or quickly.
Very quickly, the White House has announced a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. I want you to take a listen to what Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton had to say.
What I'm worried about is the safety of our athletes. I sent the Biden administration a letter last summer asking them for how they would assure the safety of our athletes. They sent me back a letter through restricted channels, but there was nothing classified about it, and they had no plan to protect our athletes. What will they do to one of our athletes if one of those young men or women should dare speak up about Tibet or Hong Kong or Taiwan or any of China's crimes against the civilized world?
Even COVID.
If we can't secure this, if we can't protect our own athletes, we should not be sending them to compete in the games of a country that is committing genocide.
Yeah.
Will our athletes be safe? Is this boycott enough?
Well, no, I think that boycott's largely symbolic, and the Chinese Communist Party could care less whether our diplomats come and go. What they care about is the money, the billions from the sponsorships, and they care about having that international propaganda platform. And essentially the entire world will be turning a blind eye to their gross human rights abuses, stamping out freedom in Hong Kong, releasing COVID on the world, their aggression in the South China Sea. I was the first member of Congress to call for a full boycott a year ago if the IOC did not move the games. And what Senator Cotton is speaking to is the fact that China's #1 tennis star and an Olympian herself, Peng Shuai, has now disappeared because she leveled a sexual assault allegation against a Chinese official. So if I were a parent, I wouldn't want to send my athletes either. But if I were an athlete, there's no gold medals worth your values. The IOC should have moved the game and not forced our athletes to make this choice. But it's time to take a stand. And if you're not going to take a stand for human rights and women's rights and censorship and freedom, then what do you stand for?
Congressman Michael Waltz, always great having you on. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you too.